So my question is it better to be fast or consistent? Come on, nobody's going to vote for fast. We got one person in the back voting for fast. Right? Because what I have experienced in my own life is there's a huge human part of me that wants to do life fast. Right? Now, when you were 20, did you want to do life consistently or did you want to do it fast? Right? I think we want to do it fast. And many of us have reached the point in our life where we're not quite as fast as we used to be. Anybody resonate with that? And so tonight I want to talk about the difference between living fast and living consistent. Has anybody ever played the game Farkle? Farkle is a hoot. Farkle is 6 dice. It's kind of like Yahtzee. It's 6 dice. And my wife and I learned, we were at our in-laws in Michigan a couple years ago, and they had brought this game Farkle, and so we were all sitting around the kitchen table playing Farkle. And the idea of Farkle is you get 6 dice, you put it in a cup, you shake the cup like Yahtzee, you throw the dice down, and you want to pair up. You want to get as many, like, ones or twos or threes. You want to pair them up. And whatever's paired up, you kind of push those aside. You take the remainder of your dice, and you can keep rolling as long as with every roll at least one of the dice matches the dice that you're trying to pair up, right? And if you don't, if you roll the dice and not one of the dice matches, you Farkle. And the way the game's played, at least at our house, is you yell at each other, Farkle! You Farkled! Right? And that's the most fun part of the game, is just shouting at each other, Farkle. Right? Because it's just such a fun thing to say. But what's interesting about that game is how many of my family members are conservative, and they'll get 3 or 4 dice, all the same number, and they stop. And how many will keep rolling and to see if they can get all 6 the same number before they Farkle. And you find out pretty quickly who are your high rollers and who are your more conservatives, right? And I found out that I am fairly conservative. I know it surprised me too, right? But if I get like 4 or 5 or even 3 or 4, all the same number, I notice I get less and less likely to throw the dice again because I know they're going to yell Farkle, and then I don't get any points at all for that roll. And tonight, I'm not wanting to empower you to be fearful of life. That's not my job. But my job is to really look at what moves your life forward in the greatest possible way. Because when we're young, we think there's a time limit. And we have to get wherever we're going. We have to make sure that we get there quickly and that we get there before everybody else because we're sure there's a competition in this. And we want to make life happen. And how quickly can I get from point A to point B and so that I'm winner, I'm the best, I'm the most amazing? And how much can I do that? And yet, in my experience, it's really not about that. It's really about, can I consistently move in the direction of my goals? Can I every day show up and take another step in the direction that I deemed is the most important for me and my life and my family and my world? And some days, if you're like me, it doesn't look like we get very far. You know, we take a step or a half step, or sometimes we even feels like we're taking a step backwards. But there's something about having the faith and the courage to go in the same direction over and over again, because in my experience, my ego wants whatever's new. Like there's lots of shiny, fun things that are new, and there's a part of me that wants to go in all those directions and not always be consistent toward the good that I've decided is the best for me. How many remember the story of the hare and the tortoise? Aesop's fable. I'm going to read it because it's only a couple paragraphs, and it's, I don't know when the last time you've heard this story, but for me it was a while. So the hare is making fun of the tortoise one day for being so slow. And do you ever get anywhere? Asked mockingly. Yes, replied the tortoise, and I get there sooner than you think. In fact, I'll run you a race to prove it. The hare was much amused by the idea of running a race with the tortoise, but for the fun of thing, he agreed. So the fox consented to act as the judge, marked the distance, and started the race off. The hare was soon far out of sight, and to make the tortoise feel even deeply ridiculous how it was for running the race with the hare, he lay down beside the course to take a nap until the tortoise would catch up. The tortoise, meanwhile, kept going slowly but steadily, and after a time passed the place where the hare was sleeping. But the hare was so peaceful that he stayed asleep and did not awake. So the tortoise was near the goal, and the hare ran to his swiftest, but could not overtake the tortoise in time. And then the last line is, the race is not always won by the swift. So what I want to do tonight is open a space for us to look at the places in our life where we think we are burning time, where we are wasting time, where we're not getting enough done, we're not accomplishing enough, we're not being as productive as we should be or as we need to be. And would we be willing tonight to look at our life from a different point of view? Ecclesiastes 9:11 says, again I say that under the sun the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor the bread to the wise, nor the riches to the intelligent, nor the favor to men of skill, but time and chance happen to them all. So if we look at this, the story of the tortoise and the hare from a spiritual point of view, from a metaphysical, if you will, point of view, what does the hare represent and what does the tortoise represent? How many of you want to vote that the hare represents our ego's need to be fast and done and get after it? Anybody want to vote for that one? How many of us want to believe that our spirit is the tortoise who believes that we can just plod along, that we have eternity, that there is no hurry, and that all things will get done in God's way, in God's time, and that we can trust that divine process? How many of you want to believe that one? See, what I want us to see today is that we are always in the process of mastering what sometimes doesn't work for us. The ego wants things done fast. The spirit knows that we have eternity and that we can plod along, taking one step after another, and that we will absolutely, in faith, receive all the blessings of God. But our ego is basically afraid that we're going to miss something, that something good is going to happen if we don't keep moving faster and faster and faster. And in fact, we're not just moving fast enough. But some of the greatest, most successful minds of all times have taught us about the power of being persistent. Benjamin Franklin said, energy and persistence conquers all things. Energy and persistence conquers all things. That the role in life is just to keep on keeping on. Bill Bradley, ambition is the path to success, but persistence is the vehicle that you arrive in. I love that quote, right? I love it. Ambition is the path to success, but persistence is the vehicle you arrive in. That whatever is in front of you, whatever your soul has decided is your life work, whatever you are called to do, part of our spiritual journey is just showing up every day and taking the next step, trusting that the step after that and the step after that will be revealed and we will move forward. Character consists of what you do on the third and fourth tries, said James Michener. It does not matter how slowly you go about as long as you do not stop, Brian King. Julie Andrews said, perseverance is failing 19 times and succeeding on the 20th. Napoleon Hill says, failure cannot cope with persistency. So what I want you to see tonight was what's important enough for you that you be willing to take one step at a time until you achieve that desire. Because I think there's a fear in many of us that if we don't hurry up, we'll miss it. If we don't run and make sure it all gets done today or by noon, we know that it's going to be taken away from us. But what if that's absolutely an illusion of your ego? What if the things that God wants to bless you with are absolutely yours, but there is a spiritual activity that invites us to keep taking the next step over and over and over again? What is important to you? Persistently go in that direction. Even if you don't know how, even if you fail, even if no one else believes in you, God will see you through. The persistent life is the soul's desire to experience more God every day. You know, there's a famous Zen teaching that says, before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. Right? And it's this idea that so many of the things that our ego makes important, that our ego says is time sensitive, that it has to get done, right? How many emails have you read that said, this is highly time sensitive and it needs to be done, and then you rush around and get it done, and then the person you hand it to says, oh, we don't really need that anymore. And it's like it happens over and over again because there's this idea that everything is time sensitive. And the things of spirit simply are not time sensitive. What's the most important thing? And to be willing to go after that over and over again. See, there's two levels of life. The having level of life and the being level of life. When we're into being, to experience more and more God. See, I believe that God has placed something within all of our hearts that really is ours to do. That it's ours to be, it's ours to live. It's a gift that God has given to all of us. And that every day that gift, that blessing is so great, so wonderful, and sometimes so big that we can't do it in one day or 1 month or even 1 year. That our soul has to get up every day and take the steps in that direction, knowing that it will be fulfilled, even though we don't always know when. We have to be willing to trust that there is an activity of God at work, and our job is to simply plod along in a direction until it's revealed and it happens in a way that is beyond sometimes our ability to understand. So what greatness in your life are you willing to move in that direction, even if it takes more than a moment, a week, a month, a year, but that greatness is so important to your soul that you would be willing to do it even if it took forever. See, I believe that our souls aren't here for the amount of time that we think, that we are eternal spiritual beings expressing God. And that if we only do the things that we can do in a moment, oftentimes we miss out on blessings that are great. And every day your soul is called to persist. And there are times, well, I'm going to read from Catherine Ponder. Catherine Ponder is one of my favorite authors. She's a Unity author. She began writing in the 50s. Her books, I think we've got all of them in the bookstore. Her books are just adorable. And this is on page 49 of Dare to Prosper. Here's the final point to remember. Success has a way of coming in a hurry after you've endured a long haul of plodding along slowly. Like, how many groups can we think that they say that they were a one-hit wonder or that they just instantly became famous and they've been working small clubs and small concerts for years and then all of a sudden they become famous? Plodding along slowly, as you quietly persist toward your goal, prepare yourself for quick and exciting, success-filled results. Have your plans made as to what you will do when success arrives, because just when it seems least likely, the tide will turn for you. Then it will be necessary for you to take a deep breath and proceed to accept the abundance that God has for you. As fulfillment comes, you must let go of and not move into the unbalance yourself. Be alert, be ready to accept it. Otherwise, it will slip away and leave you to begin all over again. If you have a master plan, it will be easy for you to accept your success and maintain it. To paraphrase the words of Paul, forget the things that lie behind you and press forward towards your goal. Now, as you work out your master plan of success, I want us to do this prayer. Then she goes and gives us this prayer, and I'd like you to read it with me. Can you see it? It says, divine intelligence. Together? Divine intelligence. Let the master plan of my life now reveal itself in me. Let the master plan of my life now begin working for me. I give thanks for the perfect results of the master plan. With God's help, I now begin to experience the results of my master's plan. See, what I want us to see today is that our job is just to keep taking the next step. And if we have the courage to keep taking the next step, there's a moment where everything opens up and all the work that you've done, all the steps that you've taken reveal this master plan, this possibility for you that absolutely in your conscious mind you may not even have been aware of could be had. And that in a moment it is fulfilled. So let's read it again. Divine intelligence, let the master plan of my life now reveal itself to me. Let the master plan of my life now begin working for me. I give thanks that the perfect results of that master plan, God's help, I now begin to experience the results of my master plan. Will you pray with me? I invite you to open your mind, your heart, your soul to this divine activity. I want you to see that God does have a plan for you in your life, and that we are activating that divine plan. And we just keep taking one step after another as we are open and receptive to God's master plan being revealed through us. So tonight we celebrate our persistency. We celebrate that we can keep on keeping on. And we know that through our daily activities, greater good is being revealed. So in all things we look to God, and in all things we give thanks, and so it is. Amen.